Today we're going to talk about how to install Klipper on the Big Tree Tech SKR Pro. Now I'm pretty sure most of you already know what Klipper is, but essentially it's a way of pushing the processing of command movements to a remote computer and then having a thinned down firmware that just processes the commands. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through how to install it, because a lot of people have been asking for how to do it on the SKR Pro. So this will apply to both the version 1.1 and version 1.2. So we're going to go over to the desktop for a second, and we're going to look at the directions. So inside here they have install directions. Now it's going to be very different from what you're used to in these directions for other platforms. So it's going to be somewhat long a tutorial, but my patrons have been asking for it, as well as people that have been donating on PayPal. So I thought I'd address it. So inside here, it says what you can work with is the Octopi as a possible way to drive the commands to it with Klipper as an install. So I'm going to show you how to install, first of all, Octopi. So over here we have the website, and we're on the Downloads tab for it. So if we scroll all the way to the bottom, there's a reference right here where we can go to the actual download for it and click on this, and we can also go to the repository. So I'm going to click the download. Now I've already downloaded it and already extracted it, so I'm going to skip a lot of this so you can see what's going on. So I'm going to go back over to the desktop for a second, and I'm going to take out the SD card. In this case I'm using a 16 gigabit SD card. There are larger ones, but this is the one I prefer in this case. So I'm going to install that and then place it in the computer. So you may hear a beep when I plug it in. Next, I'm going to go back over to the desktop on the computer, and I'm going to go to what's known as Raspberry Pi Imager. So this is a Raspberry Pi Imager that you can download, and I'll leave a link in the description, as well as the other tools that I'm using. So I'm going to click on Choose OS. I'm going to do Use Custom, and then it's going to point me to my Downloads folder. And inside here I already extracted the image file, so I'm going to click on that, click Open. Then I'm going to choose the SD card, and then I'm going to click Write. Now this may take a few minutes. Let me click yes for continue to overwrite. And if it does, what I'll do is I'll actually shorten it. It's somewhat short as is, but essentially what's occurring right now is the image file for Raspbian's operating system with Octoprint in it is imaging onto the SD card. So we'll give this a moment, and then we'll pick up from there. Okay, now that it's completed, I'm going to actually click on the continue. Now, unfortunately, I have to go to the desktop for a second to show you something. So I need to remove the drive for a moment, then place it back in. So you'll hear that beep again. We'll go back over to the desktop. Now we'll go over to our Downloads folder. Inside here, we'll click on the E drive, and in here, in order to set up your network, you're going to have to click on Octopi. And when you click on Octopi, you'll get this to open up. Now you're going to have to edit this inside Notepad++, because the saving feature for Windows is different from the saving feature of Notepad++. So I'm going to open it here, and I'll show you what you need to modify. So down in here, if you're using a Wi-Fi router with WPA and WPA2, you're going to have to remove these comments. So you'll click here, here, and here, and remove these hash marks, which are comments. Then you'll place the name of your router in here, and then the password to get into your router. Now, obviously, I've already done this off camera so that you can't see what my settings are. So I'm going to close it, and I'm just going to go to my downloads folder and grab it real quick, and then paste it into the folder. Okay, so that's all set. So the next thing you're going to do is just go to your desktop. You're going to remove the actual drive like so, and you're going to place it inside here. Next, what you're going to do is you're actually going to connect power to it, so you have to get a good power supply. And the one that I like is the one that came with the Raspberry Pi kit that I purchased. So let me show it to you here. So I'm just going to plug it in like so, and then I'm going to power this in just a second. So I'm going to turn on the power, and we'll let that actually boot up. After it boots up, what we're going to have to do is actually go to DOS and figure out where it is on the network. And the way that you can do that in DOS from your Windows machine, if you're connected to a Wi-Fi router, is the following. So inside DOS, I'm going to type ARP, that's ARP, with a space, then -A. And what that says is show me all of the things on the network that you can show me. And so at the moment, what we see is the 1.1, which is the router. The 1.3 is the computer that I'm working on currently. And then there's a bunch of other information. So currently it's not displaying, but in a few moments it should be able to display. So I'm going to up arrow in DOS, and then I'll hit enter again, and hopefully it'll show up. So it'll probably be like 192.168.1 dot and then something else. So let's see what we get. So in this case, it's 192.168.1.5. So we know what the address is now. So I'm going to minimize this. Then I'm going to go over to my web browser, open a new tab, and type 192.168.1.5 and press enter. Now, once this loads, what we're going to have to do is actually make some changes. So it's going to be the initial install. So the setup wizard, all we have to do is basically press next. We don't have anything to restore from a backup at the moment, so we'll go next. Then we'll give it an actual password or username, of Pi. And then here we'll say Raspberry, that's RASPBERRY, and then we'll create an account. So I'm not going to save it. I'm going to then go next. And so what we want to do is, at the moment, I'm going to enable anonymous tracking. And what that can be changed if you want is to go into settings. But for now, I'm going to go next. Down here, I'm going to test the name resolution. That's basically saying the octoprint.org actually shows up. And apparently it does. So then we'll say enable connectivity and next. And then I'm going to enable plugin blacklist processing. Or actually, in this case, I'm going to disable it. So let's try going next. Then we're going to change the name here to Clipper. And then going next. And we basically finished the install. So I'm going to say finished. So the first thing that we want to do is actually check to see if we can get the plugin. So it might not show up if we click over here at the moment. So there's a new feature that was added when you do an update. So I'll show you how to do that. You're going to click over here, and we're going to click software update, and we're going to update all. So we'll proceed with this. This may take a few moments to actually do. It's probably about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes on this computer. But on other computers, the time might be longer or shorter, as I guess More people have really nice systems now. So it's probably going to ask us to reboot once it's finished. So what I'm going to have to do is wait for that, which is any second now. So it said update successful and restarting. So it's actually taking care of it for us. So it's going to take a moment. Now it's going to say reload now. So this is where we're going to actually place the Klipper plugin in. And this will be useful in a few moments. So as soon as this actually reloads, we'll go over here to the wrench again. Then we'll look for our plugin manager. We'll click Get More, and we'll type Klipper. And we'll click on Install for that. This may take a few seconds. So once this completes, it'll probably ask for a restart again. So we'll do that real quick, and we'll proceed. So now that this is finished, we'll wait for it to reconnect, but what I want to show you now is the actual other steps for doing this. So inside of the installation directions that we have right here, it's going to have us do a couple of steps. Now, I discovered there's a simpler way to do this because a lot of people are getting errors. But first, let me point out what Git is. Git is a repository that we're going to clone from, and this is the address. So I'm going to copy that. Now I have to do this in a command line dialog. So I'm going to go to TerraTerm. I'm going to go File, New, and over here I'm going to go to the address 192.168.1.5 again, but I'm going to use port 22, and I'm going to do SSH. What that is secure shell. It's a way of ciphering communication between you and the device. So I'm going to click OK. Then I'm going to say continue. And I'm going to put in the password of Pi again. And then on the next line, I'm going to put the password for the username we just put in of Raspberry. And then I'm going to say OK. So this will bring up the environment for us. So we'll right click to put the command in. And we'll say OK. And this will take a few seconds to actually pull down. Then we're going to have to do another step that's not in the directions, and that's a sudo app update. Otherwise, this is going to be a little bit hard to work with. So I'm going to put the command in here so you can see it. This may take a few seconds. So you have to put in what's known as a sudo superuser password. So I'm going to put in Raspberry again and press enter. And it'll take a few seconds, then it'll prompt you for yes or no. Say yes, and then enter. And then this will go on for about a minute or two. Next, we're going to actually go back over to Klipper, and we're going to have to check what the instruction is on the website. So this is the shell script that we're going to run. It's basically a bunch of downloads. And the way you know it's a shell script is the / in front. Then it's the directory path for the two directories in. And then it's install. And it is the octopi.shell. So the .sh is a shell script. So we're going to go back over to our computer that we're connected to, being the Raspberry Pi. We're going to right click again, and then we're going to press enter. And this step can take up to 25 minutes, at least on my computer. It may be longer or shorter depending upon your connection to the internet and your processor speed on your computer. So once this completes, we'll move on to the next direction, which is actually, we're going to have to go into the Klipper menu, or excuse me, directory. So as you can see here, it says building and flashing microcontroller. So in this case, we're going to have to go to the Klipper directory. So I'm going to copy that, and then we'll go back over here for a second. We'll give this a few moments to actually complete. And then what we'll do is we'll paste in that command as well. But what we'll do after that is a make command. So what make means, or excuse me, make menu config, is that we're going to go in and configure the menu for our processor type. Now there's some hints that you can use in your configuration. So I pulled up the Klipper configuration that you can find over here on GitHub, and it's got each one of the actual board types that you would want to work with. So in this case, we're using the SKR Pro. So it's right here. And this will give us some clues. It'll be the processor is STM32F407. And then it's 32-bit bootloader. And then there's a couple other things that I actually know that I'll tell you in a moment on how to handle. So that's what we're going to have to do when we get to the make menu. Next, we'll have to do a make. And in the make, it's actually a build in this case. So it's a bunch of compiles that will occur, and it will build the Klipper.bin, which in this case we'll rename later as firmware.bin. So let's check on the progress that we have here. So it looks like it's doing kind of well. We're pretty close to finishing up here. So as soon as this finishes, we'll actually plug in the command. So let's just give this a second more and see what happens. For those that don't know, there is a Discord server location that will be in the description where you can actually have conversations with myself or other people as to how to configure things. And also, for those that don't know, there's Patreon as well as PayPal for people that want a tip. And I'm eventually going to have to add thank yous again. I'll probably do it in this video for the people that have been gracious enough to help offset the expense of making these tutorials for you. So now that this is finishing up, what we'll do is we'll paste the command from Klipper, hopefully soon. So we're going to copy both these lines in this case because I want to show you the advantage to Teraterm. So as soon as this finishes installing whatever it's installing for Python, we'll give that a try. Okay, so here we are. So we're done doing the install. It looks like it was successful. I'm going to clear the screen so you can see better. I'm going to press enter real quick here, and then I'm going to right click. It's going to execute the first command because there's a hidden line feed carriage return after it, and it'll stop on the make menu command. So I'll click OK. And now we'll go into make menu. So inside make menu, we're going to hit the space bar to start. Once we've hit the space bar, we're going to down arrow once, right arrow. Then we're going to down arrow to our processor type, which is STM32, and press space bar. Then we're going to down arrow again, and we're going to apparently fix the bootloader, but let's see if we can fix the actual processor type because maybe that'll fix it for us. So we'll right arrow, we'll down arrow to the STM32F407 and hit spacebar. And it looks like it corrected it for us and also gave us the correct megahertz. Now you can do the internal clock as well, but I prefer to go with their defaults. So to save this, you're going to hit the Q button, then the Y button for yes. Now we're going to type make to actually build it. And we'll press enter. And this should take probably about 30 seconds depending upon your computer. Once that's complete, we're going to have to actually pull the actual build off for Klipper.bin, which will pop in a second. There it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you over to FileZilla. It's one of my favorites. And I'm going to type 192.168.1.5. Username is going to be Pi. Password is going to be Raspberry. And then the port number, of course, is going to be 22. And then we'll do a quick connect. Answer OK for this dialog. And then you're going to go to the Klipper directory. And then you're going to find the out directory. Once you found the out directory, what you're going to do is you're going to grab the Klipper and you're going to drag it over to your downloads folder that's specified for your computer on the other side. So once that's complete, we actually have to go over to our downloads directory, which is right over here. We're going to have to right click on this file name, and we're going to say rename, and we're going to call this firmware.bin. Now we have to go over to the workbench for a second. I need to pop out the drive that's on the SKR Pro, and I need to paste it or drop it, inside of the USB drive, which I'll plug in, and you'll hear a beep yet again. When this comes up, okay, as you can see in here, what we're going to do is go over to here, and as you can see, I've got backup.temp. This is something that I renamed, and the reason that I renamed it, it was originally firmware.cur. The reason that I renamed it is that if I want to reload it in the future, I can rename it to firmware.bin in lowercase, and it'll rename itself after it loads to firmware.cur in all capital letters. So I'm going to go back over to the regular directory over here, right click on firmware.bin that we have, and I'm going to send this to the USB drive. So we can verify it's there now. So now what we'll do is we'll go over to the workbench, we'll pop out the drive, we'll take out the SD card, we'll place it in here, and then we're going to power it. And we're going to power it off the actual Raspberry Pi. So I'm going to plug in over here, and then I'm going to plug in this end over here. Now I have this set up so that it's on USB power, so it'll flash for us. So it's now flashing, and hopefully if we've done this correctly, we can actually see something in the command line. So let's go over to the desktop, and we'll go to the command line, and we're going to have to put a command in here from the Klipper install. So if you click over here, you can see that down here further, they check for the actual drive type. So I'm kind of doing this out of order from the way I want to do it. So I'm just going to paste this here so you can see it. So this is actually our drive path right here. So now that we have that, that's going to be easy to set up because we know we have connectivity. So the other thing that we need to do while we're here is actually copy over the configuration. So I'm going to skip this because we can't flash. And down here, they have an actual copy for the Klipper config. What this is copy, and then there's like a tilde sign here. Then we have Klipper config, and then the name of the file. The tilde is a shorthand, so you don't have to type everything out. Then the same thing occurs for tilde, and then it's saying name the file printer config. So in this case, we're actually going to be using this file. So we need to know the name of the file, which is going to be right here, and we'll rename it. So I'll show you that in just a second. So I'm going to go over here, and I've already done the command, so I'll show you what it looks like. So here's the command. All I'm saying is use the generic BigTreeTech SKR Pro config, and then I'm saying it in this same folder path that we've specified. We're going to call it printer.config. So I'll hit enter, and it's done. Now obviously you can't see what happened because if we ls this directory, being listing it, we don't see it. So if I say cd, which means change directory, ... which means above this directory, and do the same command for ls, you'll see that there's a printer config right here. Now if you actually want to see what's in the file before we do anything else, what I'll do is I'll clear the screen for a second, and I'll type CAT, which is cat, and then I'll type printer, and I'll hit tab, or print and then tab, and that'll auto-complete the command, and this will show us what the contents are. So as you can see, these are the contents of our file at the moment. So if you scan through this, you can see there's a couple things. An exclamation point right here means to negate the logic. So if something is true and there's an exclamation point in the config file, it will be false. And if it's false and there's a bang symbol in front of it or an exclamation point, then it will be true. Now there's probably another one in here for caret. That has to do with pull-up resistors. Now I don't see it in here currently and you'll probably never use it, but that is another command that you can use. And it's basically for electronics on your board. Now there's other things in this file. They have different configurations that you can use for different steppers. This will help you understand your configuration when you go to set it up. But just keep in mind that they do things a little strange by axis. So there's a bunch of things in here. One of them is your actual end stop. So right here is your enable pin. That's for your stepper. Your direction pin is for your stepper. And then you have a step pin. Down here a little bit lower you have your end stop. So that's integrated into the axis, and then of course they have different settings that I'll show you how to look up in a second. So that's going to be the same for X, Y, and Z. And then they have the same thing going on with the extruder, and they also have PID settings. That's an advanced topic for tuning the heating and cooling of your print head based on a calibration. And so on top of that, they have a second extruder that you can possibly use. It's currently commented out with these pound signs. And then of course they have a third extruder. They have the heat bed. So we're gonna have to use actual thermistors to actually test this because I don't have it in a system, but I'll show you that in a moment. So anything that has a hash mark in front of it is currently commented out and won't be used. But the most important thing that we're interested in this file is the MCU. So this would be the path to our particular device. This is currently not correct, so we're going to need to change that. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. So let me clear the screen one more time. So we'll click clear. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to have to click clear screen, pardon me. We'll go back over to the actual browser for a second, go back into the config, and it's saying to do a NAND. A NAND is like VI or similar to VI, it's an editor. So we'll say NAND tilde, the name of the file being printer.config. So in order to do that, what we need to do, in this case is probably just NAND printer config because we're not in a different directory, so we don't have to worry about that. But we'll first check on our actual setting for our USB. So I'm going to click here, find out what it is. I'm going to then copy this. And of course it shows up that I copied it. So I'm going to backspace over this for a second. And then I'm going to type nano and then printer tab, enter. So this brings us into the file. We can scroll down or arrow down, which is preferable in this case. So we're going to find the MCU. Then what we're going to do is we're going to backspace over everything. And then we're going to try and paste it, hopefully. So there's got to be a paste command here, which is, give me a second to find it. I think it's going to be control /. Let's try that. Oh, that's just replace. So let's hit escape. Or we'll just do this in the file, because obviously I haven't worked with this ever. But we can say shift cancel. Let's see, whereas, amazing, I thought I had a paste functionality. Let's try right clicking. There we go. That'll work. So to save, you're going to say Control X, and then you're going to say yes. It'll say the file name, press enter, and we're all good there. So we can actually close out of this now because we don't need to use it anymore. And we can go back over to Octopus, or Octoprint, pardon me. I see the octopus and say that. There's a Clipper tab. Now obviously it's not going to work right away. So I'm going to do Open Clipper Config. I'm going to click Load from File, and now it's here. So we can actually check our settings. That looks reasonably correct, and everything else looks correct. But they are talking about the end stop pins, so we're going to have those for our actual configuration. So we're not going to be able to connect right away. We're going to have to do some setup. So I'm going to click over here. I'm going to go to Temp Printer. I'm going to save that. I'm going to attempt to connect. It will fail, and I'll show you why in a second. So right now it's saying there's some issues with the printer and we should reset. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm actually going to do a reset. So I'll do Reboot System. I'll proceed. Then I'm going to go back over to the desktop for a second and show you what's occurring. So I'm going to actually disconnect this, and we're going to have to connect some things to this board. So the first actual thermistor needs to be connected right here, and I'm using a loose thermistor just so you can see what's occurring. And then I have to do one for the actual extruder for the first extruder, because we're just doing a mock setup. We can't actually move this. So I'm going to place these over here. Next, what I'm going to do is actually connect some end stops. So the first end stop is actually a switch end stop. And this one you can use the negate on, and you can also use the caret symbol if you want to use the pull-up resistors. But in this case, it's set up as the green wire is signal, the black wire is ground, and the red wire is voltage. So the pins for that, for our actual end stops, because we have our X minimum, our Y minimum, and our Z minimum, it's actually voltage, ground, signal. So you're going to match up your pins that way. So I'm going to plug this in, and I'll show you what it looks like. Then I'm going to do a different type of end stop. Excuse me. This one only has 2 wires, so it's ground and voltage, but it's actually ground and signal. So it's the bottom 2 pins. So I'm going to plug that in over here so you can see it. And I'm going to move this off to the side. Then I'm going to do one last end stop. And this is just to check the actual install is working. So same thing as before. So bottom 2 pins being ground and signal. I'm going to move this over, and then I'm going to plug in the power again. And as you can see, the board's powering up. So let's go back over and check on the desktop. So we'll do reload now. And what we're going to do is try and connect. So it does say that we have an issue. I'm not exactly sure what this new issue is, but it's saying MCU is unable to connect. So what we can do is this. Open the Clipper config, and we can figure out what's going on by first checking the end stops. This says PB10. So we can actually go over to our Bigtree Tech site. We can click on the SKR Pro. In this case, it's the SKR Pro version 1.2. We can then go to, looks like maybe manual, and there's the pins file. So down here in the pins file, we are working with PB10, so we know we're good there. So let's go to the next thing that might be an issue. So down here it says PE12 for the y-axis. So let's verify that. So for the y-axis it's PE12, so we're good there. So the next thing that we can look at is PG8. So let's see what we've got for PG8. So it is PG8, so we're good there as well. So the other thing we can check is our thermistors. So we have PC6 and PF14. So if we go back over here and we look for our first extruder, we can look for, in this case, I believe the pin is PF4. So T1 header. So we got to find that one. So PF4. So for our thermistor, I lost my place here. Huh. Sorry about that, guys. Having a slight brain fart. Amazing. So these are the actual pins. So here we go. PF4 and PF3. So we know that PF4 is going to be the actual thermistor for the hot end. So let's go back over here and check the other one. So down here, we have PF3 for the heat bed. So let's double check that real quick. So it's PF3. So we're connected there. So I might have a bad thermistor, or it's not fully plugged in. So let's go back over here and see if we can connect again. So correct the underlying issue, which it doesn't tell us what it is. It says MCU is unable to connect. So that means that the MCU's got an issue. So that probably means we have to go back into Teraterm and double check this. So give me a second to bring it over so you can see it. I'm going to bring over Teraterm. I'm going to then connect like so. Continue. It's going to be Pi and then Raspberry. And then I'm going to say OK. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to do that command. Whoops. Let's try that again. Raspberry. And so we've got to check the clipper command real quick here. So we'll do this command and make sure that we've got it right, because maybe it's not able to connect. So I'm going to highlight this and copy it. And then I'm going to go back over to our configuration. I'm going to click on Open Config. I'm going to paste it down below, and I'm going to type serial colon, and then I'm going to paste it right here so we can see if there's a difference. So there is no difference that I can see, so I'm going to delete the top line. Then I'm going to go to the end of this, say enter, and save. So the only thing left that I can think of is a reboot and also adjusting the actual configuration on the desktop. So I'm going to power this down for a second. I'm going to make sure these are all down in place because one of these might be broken and I don't know it, and that might be causing our issue. I'm also going to check the fit for these because they might not be fully connected. And then I'm going to plug it back in and we're going to do a restart of the system. So I'm going to go over to the actual power cord in this case. And I'm going to power it down. I'm going to power it up. And hopefully this will take care of the problem. Now, for those that have been watching my tutorials for a while, they know about the Discord. So there'll be a link in the description to help you understand issues with either myself or other people to resolve questions you might have. And also there's Patreon as well as PayPal to help me offset the costs of these tutorials for you. So let's go back over to the desktop. We'll see what we got here with a reload, and hopefully this will be working better. So it is. So essentially all the things I just showed you were ways to troubleshoot stuff. There may have been a loose connection that I just checked. So if you like my tutorial, please press the like button and subscribe. And thank you for your time.